Hey folks, welcome back to Let's Play Final Fantasy XIII-2. I am the mysterious JG. So, let's explain what happened in Final Fantasy XIII before we go any further, because we're about to get out of the prologue, and Noel is going to go try to find Serah, whose life has actually continued on from Final Fantasy XIII. So, Final Fantasy XIII basically takes place between two worlds called Cocoon and Pulse. And we spend much of the first, half of the game thinking that these are like two different worlds that are kind of, similar, opposite, whatever. But I'm trying to think what order to attack this in. You're running around because there's this thing where the government of Cocoon, which is called the Sanctum, they are going to kill anyone who's been in contact with someone from Pulse, because everyone on Cocoon lives in mortal fear of an invasion from this world called Pulse. And I forgot to start my timer. So everyone lives in fear of an invasion from Pulse. So at the very beginning of the game, there's a group of people who have been put on a train by the government of Cocoon and are being purged, which is to say they are going to be put on a train which is going to send them to Pulse because they feel like these people have been tainted by being associated with Pulse, and therefore they have to go to Pulse. And if you resist, you get killed. The reason they think these people have been tainted with Pulse is because, and this is where things get really confused, the whole planet of Cocoon is kind of run and supported by these things that are called Foul Sea, which are these kind of like god monster creatures that don't really communicate with humans, but like there's a Fall Sea, which is this big kind of robot living tool creature god thing that produces all the food. There's another one that I don't know, they seem like they're the ones who basically provide food and shelter and water. And there's a false sea named Eden, which is, I guess, the main thing running things. And the ruler of the government is just some person who actually consults with the foul sea that's named Eden, and they rule, blah, blah, blah. But these are the false sea of Cocoon, but there are also false sea, apparently, from Pulse. And any false sea can take a person and transform that person into what's called a lussie. And the fact that none of this is very well explained in the dialogue, some of it's not very well explained in the dialogue of Final Fantasy XIII. It's part of the reason Final Fantasy XIII is so hard to follow. But a fal'Cie, which is this big god monster, can turn a person into a lussie who is linked to that god monster, and they have like a special mark that appears someone on their bodies that marks them as a servant of this god monster, and they are given magical powers. Basically, they just get to use magic. And enemies in the game also use magic, but it's supposed to be a mana drive, like technologically driven magic, whereas a lassie can just produce fireballs and water balls and lightning balls and air balls, because those are the four elemental attacks, out of their bare hands. But in exchange for these powers, the lassie is given what they call a focus, which is a mission that they must complete. And if they fail that mission after a certain amount of time, which they do not know how long it is, they turn into a Seath, which is this kind of crystalline monster, like unthinking, apparently not sentient monster. But if they succeed in their focus, they turn into a beautiful blue crystal and, according to legend, live forever. But you don't really want to turn into a lassie because, you're not told what your focus is. You're supposed to figure it out, what your mission is. And if you fail, you turn into a monster. And even if you succeed, although they say you, quote, live forever, you turn into this crystal thing. So either way, you're kind of hosed. You don't get to, just live a life. You don't get to live alive. So basically the plot is, and some of this is revealed through flashback over the course of the game, Lightning, the main character, her sister is turned into a lassie, which is where Lightning goes all crazy and angry. and is like fighting against the Sanctum because the Sanctum is purging, is going to kill all the sea and send anybody who is in contact with them to Pulse. And Snow is this big, goofy douchebag who is Serah's fiance. And Snow is constantly trying to find some kind of common ground with Lightning, but Lightning is just really bitchy and angry and treats Snow like garbage. But both Snow and Lightning are all put out because Serah has been turned into a l'Cie, and they're running around trying to rescue people in their hometown who are being purged by the government. They're trying to fight the government to protect their people in their town. And they come across people like Hope, who's some little kid who just got stuck in town when the purge went down and really has nothing to do with anything. And then a mysterious Australian accented girl named Vanille that we find out about maybe a third of the way, halfway through the game, that she actually is from Pulse and is a l'Cie. But, you know, she's still good and, like, she's not a bad person. It's just she is from this planet that they're all afraid of. And there's a guy named Zaz who's running around, and his son, who's like a toddler, has been turned into a l'Cie, and therefore Zaz is all pissed off and trying to figure out what to do. And eventually, I think I've mentioned all the playable characters except Fang, who is also from Pulse and shows up later. So you got these characters, and they're running around, and they're constantly being chased by soldiers, and eventually Lightning and Zaz and Snow end up fighting a l'Cie, and they're trying to destroy it to sort of get revenge, or make it turn Serah back to normal or something. But instead, they all get marked, and they all become l'Cie, and they spend the first half of the game running away from the government that's trying to kill them, and, you know, blah, 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 blah. And eventually, what they find out is that the planet Pulse is, the Cocoon is actually a little small, like, moon kind of orbiting Pulse. So Cocoon is its own world, but it is actually floats in the sky of Pulse, because Cocoon, as the name implies, is this closed-off, sealed-off place where these humans live. And it's being run by the l'Cie, because the l'Cie have put these humans there and are caring for them and raising them and nurturing them. But whereas the world of Pulse is like covered with monsters and stuff, and there were people on Pulse, but the war was about people on Pulse trying to break into Cocoon, because Cocoon was like the safe place to live, I guess. And they both had their own fal'Cie. It's very confusing, and I know I'm going long, but this is the whole story of this game is like, what the hell's going on? But ultimately, what it all boils down to is that the fal'Cie, who are these god monsters running Cocoon, don't actually have the best interests of people in heart at all. So they've created a society where everyone lives in fear of the planet Pulse. But the two people from Pulse that are in the story are actually the only two survivors of the planet Pulse, because they were sent to Cocoon. They got turned into crystal and slept for like 100 years and woke up. But during the intervening 100 years, like, everyone who's left on Pulse is dead. And now Pulse is just this world full of monsters. And the l'Cie, the fal'Cie, are drumming up this fear of Pulse because they want everyone living in fear. And we don't really understand why. And the main leader of the fal'Cie, even though there's some kind of inhuman god monster, keeps manifesting as this old Emperor Palpatine type guy and taunting our heroes and trying to get them to destroy Cocoon. Because eventually we find out that the fal'Cie have this vague plan, which you really never understand unless you read all the supplemental materials that's in the menus, and is not carefully explained in the game. The fal'Cie are trying to trigger a catastrophe because the god that made all of this stuff made it and then disappeared. And the fal'Cie are trying to summon God back to make a more perfect world, because the fal'Cie were created as tools of this god. So even though they enslave humans and make them l'Cie, the fal'Cie themselves apparently don't have the freedom to recreate the world the way they want it. So it's very weird, but they're trying to get the l'Cie to destroy the world, because the mass annihilation of all human beings will summon God back, and God will make the world anew and fix it and make it right this time. And that's the story. So all this stuff happens, and our heroes keep being manipulated by the villain into fighting, because the villain is trying to make them more powerful, because the villain can't commit suicide, but the villain basically wants our heroes to show up at Eden, which is the capital of the world, and destroy the fal'Cie that runs everything, because that will knock Cocoon out of orbit, and Cocoon will crash into Pulse, killing everyone, which will summon God. That's the story. And at the end, you do everything that they told you to do, like an idiot, and you fight this final boss, and Cocoon is plummeting into the Pulse to be destroyed, but spontaneously, with very little explanation as to how this works, the two fal'Cie who are from Pulse, Vanille and Fang, they've been told all along that they're supposed to transform into the monster called Ragnarok, which is strong enough to destroy Cocoon. But instead, they collectively transform into the monster Ragnarok and catch Cocoon as it's falling and transform into a magical crystal pillar which holds Cocoon up in the sky. And somehow, at the end of the game, our heroes are all on Pulse, and they're going to create a new life on the planet Pulse. And it's not really clear to me whether you can still live in Cocoon. I think Cocoon is kind of like wrecked, but because Cocoon didn't smash into Pulse, the people who used to live in Cocoon can now live peacefully in Pulse, and the evil fal'Cie, which were taking care of them but also manipulating and using them, are gone. And at the end of the very, very end of the game, Serah and Saz's son are turned back into like people again, and Serah and Snow embrace and declare that they're going to be married, and Lightning, who up to this point has always hated Snow and hated her sister being engaged, finally says, "Congrats," and that's the happy ending. So that's where Serah's life is. She had been turned into a l'Cie. She turned into Crystal at one point during the story, which led to lots of people going, "Serah!" and me and the LP going, "Stud!" But she spent the entire game as a Crystal, but she and the little kid were miraculously transformed back into people again at the end after the evil fal'Cie were defeated. And she's getting ready to have a wonderful life with her fiancé, Snow, and her sister, Lightning, no longer objects. And that's where Serah's story sort of ends in Final Fantasy XIII. Now let's see what's happening with her in Final Fantasy XIII-2.
Be there for her, because I no longer can.
I didn't realize she had another line to deliver, but okay, that was Lightning. That was the end of Lightning's weird speech from Valhalla or whatever. Oh, and last time we saw Lightning fighting in Valhalla against some guy we don't know, and then some person we also don't know showed up, and none of that makes any sense at this point, which is why I didn't attempt to explain it. I should have done a scripted... I could have done an amusing video if I actually scripted a summary of Final Fantasy XIII's story instead of trying to just kind of, off the top of my head, explain what the hell happened.
Flows without pause. In a world where I no longer exist, the future is about to change.
And as you saw, the year is 003 as fuck. Meteors falling out of the sky.
Serah, the truth still survives, but only you remember it.
The truth is out there, Serah. For you and Stud. Oh yeah, and she spent the whole game also dressed in this kind of weird pseudo schoolgirl outfit.
Lightning.
When there's lightning, you know it always gets me down.
I guess it was just a dream.
It was just a dream. Now Chaos Energy gives her a new outfit because she couldn't play through the game in the schoolgirl outfit, I guess.
What?
And why am I wearing a new glowy outfit?
Where did these clothes come from?
Yeah, I don't think that's ever explained, really. Although, if you read far enough into the lore, there might be something about how Falsey have traveled through time and given her new clothes or something. What's going on, Holmes? Camera setting tutorial. No, we do not want to change the current camera setting. So you can move up and down. Oh, I do want to keep it. You can adjust your camera settings by pressing Y. And now we are being instructed to move. As you progress through the game, the data log will gradually fill with entries on a variety of subjects. Message will appear, blah, blah, blah. Those who have yet to play Final Fantasy XIII can brush up on basic gameplay by reading the primers for beginners. Which I have not read, but now I'm kind of curious as to what's in there. Oh, data log, significant persons, lightning, Serah. I probably should be reading through all these. Falsey and Lissy and Seath, catastrophe. Skippable cutscenes. Autosave. Let's go through these real quick. I guess we'll have a whole video of me explaining Final Fantasy XIII and then reading through the data log. Lightning. Lightning is Serah's older sister and a former soldier. She is also one of the Lissy who helped stop the fall of the Skyborn Paradise Cocoon, saving millions of lives in the process. 3 years ago, one of the supernatural Falsey gave Lightning a focus in order to destroy Cocoon. She resisted her fate, however, and protected her floating home. Shortly after those events, Lightning ceased to exist in this world. Most believe that she gave her life in return for Cocoon's salvation. Huh? Serah Farron. Not that Lightning's, I believe, actual name is like Claire Farron. But Serah is Lightning's younger sister. 3 years ago, she unwittingly became part of events that threatened the entire world and was eventually saved by her older sibling. Serah is still unable to accept the fact that Lightning is gone. She left her home on Cocoon and now lives as a teacher in the Grand Pulse frontier town of New Bodom. Serah is engaged in the Nora leader Snow, but current circumstances prevent them from being together. I guess a little bit of a spoiler, but even if you didn't read this, we will be running around in Serah's hometown, and you'll notice fairly soon that Snow is not around. Nora. These four goofs. Nora is a vigilante group of young do-gooders from the Cocoon town of Bodham. No strangers to fending for themselves, the group went on to found the settlement of New Bodham in the harsh environments of Pulse. Nora consists of 4 core members. I thought Snow was the leader, but okay. The intimidating Godot, Snow's right-hand man, the amiable mood-maker Yuge, the mechanical genius Maki, and the Nora House resident chef Lebro, because the girl has to cook. These characters, they actually get more dialogue in this game than they did in the last one, at least at the beginning, but they still have no personalities to speak of. Like, redhead guy is kind of big, dumb guy, the girl is the girl, and then these other two in the middle are, like, completely indistinguishable. Snow, Nora's founding members, presently away from New Bodham. Then we can look at Society, Falsey, and Lissy. The Falsey are supernatural entities that once governed the floating paradise of Cocoon. These godlike beings possess the power to curse humans, transforming them into Lissy. Serah and Lightning were once enslaved as Lissy and given the task of destroying Cocoon. Lightning defied the will of the Falsey and steered her fate down a different road. Following the catastrophe, the Falsey of the Cocoon fell into slumber. A group... I guess I could have just spared you trying to tell you the story for myself. A different group of Falsey exists on Grand Pulse, but they show little interest in the activities of humans. Oh, okay. Following the catastrophe, the Falsey of Cocoon fell into slumber, so I guess they do still exist. I was never clear on whether the Falsey of Cocoon and the Falsey of Pulse were supposed to be actual enemies of each other. If they were supposed to be on the same side, both manipulating things to destroy humanity and get without doing it directly themselves, and then get God to come back. And it kind of sucks that Hope, Fang, Vanille, and Zaz do not get any kind of coverage in this, because I guess Serah just doesn't know or care who they are. L'Cie are the cursed human servants of the Fal'Cie. Those chosen to serve find their bodies marked with a brand and are given orders in the form of a vague vision. The vision is known as a focus, and L'Cie are granted magical powers in order to fulfill their abstract destiny. Those pictured there, by the way, are Seath. L'Cie that complete their focus are transformed into eternal crystals. Those who fail to do so within the allotted time are stripped of their brand and become hideous monsters known as Seath. These mindless creatures are bereft of emotion and reason and lose all semblance of humanity. Serah was once chosen as L'Cie, but through the heroic efforts of her fiancé and her sister, she was safely returned to her human self. Catastrophe. 3 years ago, mankind... Oh, we are actually hearing mention of some other characters. Mankind stared into the face of extinction when Cocoon almost crashed onto the surface of Pulse. The sphere's fall was halted by Lightning's companions, Fang and Vanille. Their desperate sacrifice summoned a massive pillar that cradled the plummeting Cocoon in its crystalline branches, averting an unimaginable disaster. The two L'Cie now sleep within the pillar in crystal form, and there are some who believe Lightning slumbers alongside them. A new age began from that day forth, with each subsequent year marked by the letters AF or as fuck. Sorry, I mean after the fall. So Cocoon and Pulse. Cocoon is a massive sphere constructed and set in the sky by the powerful and enigmatic beings known as the Fal'Cie. Up until 0 AF, it was a floating paradise that was home to several million people. Now, however, the broken shell rests on an immense crystal pillar, bereft of the power source that once kept it afloat. The interior of the sphere was deteriorated, forcing the population to relocate to the land below. The lower world, known as either Pulse or Grand Pulse, is an unforgiving wilderness infested with predatory monsters. This world once boasted a civilization that stood in conflict with Cocoon, but traces of its culture exist only in ruins. Oh, and New Bottom. Bottom. We like the bottom. New Bottom is one of the settlements built by immigrants from Cocoon on the shores of Pulse. Many of its residents, including Serah, are former inhabitants of Cocoon's seaside town of Bottom. Serah's fiancé, Snow, chose the settlement's name. The members of his group, Nora... Yes, so original. The members of his group, Nora, help work the fields and protect the town people from roaming monsters. I'm not actually going to go through these. This will mark them all as red so that we don't... It would be nice to know this little red X's that appear sometimes. Never mind. So this is purely so that if anything brand new pops up, we can... So you're talking to her belly button? Apparently you can actually switch between easy and normal. Now if anything actually pops up on the data log... Oh, outfits... I'm not going to get into that, but that's... You can get DLC outfits for... the main characters, who are Serah and then Noel, who will be appearing soon. As you can see, color scheme-wise, she's dressed similar to Final Fantasy XIII, but they took away the schoolgirl thing and gave her more of a skin-tight... I don't know what the material is meant to be there, but it's shiny. A lot of our menu items haven't opened up. For those of you who are concerned, full use of like everything in game opens up way earlier than it does in Final Fantasy XIII, where they spend the first half of the game gradually doling out the things to you that, like, the ability to switch party members and paradigms and blah blah. That stuff happens not right away, but much sooner in this game. So basically, you wake up, you were dreaming about lightning. You get all glowy and your clothes change. Dreams of strange worlds. Clothes appear from nowhere. What's going on? The game makes you choose from one of 4 options all the time. It seems to affect nothing, except that if you choose poorly, it will give you live trigger rewards, like in treasure chests that will appear and you open them up, and they give you awards, but it's always non-gameplay awards. Like, here is... The classic one is... They're called adornments, because in this game, we'll form our 3-person party eventually using Serah, Noel, and then we'll go around capturing monsters like Pokemon style. I'm not kidding. And the items that you're given for choosing the correct responses in these things are adornments where you can put a little party hat on your Pokemon, It's really silly. Was that a vision of the future? Am I still dreaming? Is someone coming here, or a message from lightning?
Lightning? Lightning is gone. But then, what was that dream I just had?
And why am I talking out loud to
Message from the
myself?
other side? No. She can't be dead.
She won Metal Storm.
Are they from the other side as well?
Is this how people dress in the world of the dead? That's weird. So anyway, the little exclamation point on the map marks where we're supposed to go. Press B to jump. Here's our jumping tutorial zone. Okay, things are pretty bright outside, but... And there's dark chaos, Dungeon of Doom energy here. What's going on, Holt? Live trigger. Where's the village? Everything out here is completely different. What is this place? Have I died? Is this the future? Is this still a dream? Is everything I remember a lie? Guess I'll go with that one. Why not?
This place. Did I always live here? Are my memories just lies? Was it all fake?
What the heck, man?
This has happened before.
I'm going back to bed.
I felt things change when lightning disappears. Why? I don't know this place. I don't belong here.
Then why can't I go back to bed? Try jumping to get out of it. She gets depressed just because her world turned into some kind of nightmarescape? I mean, get over it. Oh, at least we got the familiar faces of the Nora members, whom we know so well. There's blue-haired guy, blonde-haired guy, big dumb guy, and girl. I'm waiting for you.
Serah, come on! Everyone!
That wasn't particularly clever and insightful, but it's probably going to come out of my mouth every time his name is mentioned. Hey guys, let's like come check out your town.
What is that? Take that!
Shouldn't you be fighting the insect guys that are actually attacking you? Yeah, like that thing. It's like I wasn't going to do anything to you, lady. Eventually, we'll be good friends. When you capture me and I join your paradigm pack. Sisters be doing it for themselves.
Lightning can't protect you anymore.
Get a grip, bitch.
You have to look after yourself now. Do you hear me? Your sister's dead. She can't help you.
That's what you get for being mean, I guess.
You want her? Then you're gonna have to go through me!
You want some? Come get yourself some. So I guess he knows how to use the bow and arrow better than you eventually will.
Get up, Serah.
You were in my dream. I saw you.
You're a stud!
Later.
Come with me if you want to live.
If I have to.
You're gonna have to.
It's one of those games.
One more thing.
It's not all dialogue choices.
Don't ever lay down and wait to die!
If you do, you'll die. Although I guess that's your objective. So we do have multiple paradigms already. This is way faster than happens in Final Fantasy XIII. We get to switch which role we have. We start out as dual commandos. And by the way, I'm not going to be too upset about getting high rankings and good item drops because we will be loading the game. Once we finish this first area and we get to the first place where we can actually start getting a third party member and grinding for items and stuff, I've done quite a bit of grinding already off screen before I started the LP. Defeat all hostiles. But just to introduce you to the concept, now we've got equipment. We have our default weapon. We don't have any accessories yet. We've also got... We're not allowed to level up yet, although we've started earning CP, chrysanthemum points. It's actually Crystarium points, but I'm being funny. Our data log is updated with more gameplay basics. Some life triggers with special options only appear after you have fulfilled certain requirements. Discover what twists and turns there are, and whatever. Active time battle, I think, was already kind of explained to us. You guys can jump in and tell me if I am doing something wrong in the gameplay. Even in my Final Fantasy XIII LP, people were jumping in periodically to tell me that I was doing it wrong. So, but yeah, we're at 30 minutes now. So when we come back, we're actually well and truly ready to start playing the game. There's going to be quite a lot of cinematics, but we actually do have a story happening now, as monsters have invaded the town of New Bodham. And it sure didn't take Neil long to find Serah. If you thought this game was going to be the story of Neil looking for Serah, you were wrong. As far as whether Neil and Serah can get back to Lightning, that may be a little bit trickier. Catch you next time, guys.